I call the Honourable Member Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I rise to speak on behalf of the Green Party on this proposed motion to divide this bill into two parts. We have an amendment before us to a supplementary order paper before us to divide this bill into two parts, the first of which would be called, according to this SOP, would be called the State-Owned Enterprises Amendment Act 2012, and I don't have a particular problem with that. However, the second bill, the second part, is to be titled, according to this SOP, the Public Finance Mixed Ownership Model Bill. And I do have an issue with calling it the Public Finance Mixed Ownership Model Bill as this SOP proposes. The reason why I disagree with this is because I think that this is a piece of propaganda. The reason I say that is that if you were serious about naming this piece of legislation in a non-propaganda way, in a straightforward way, as this SOP, the title this SOP proposes here, you would simply call it the Public Finance Mixed Ownership Amendment Act. The government would simply call it the Public Finance Mixed Ownership Amendment Act. The question I have is that on this supplementary order paper before us, and in fact, of course, in the whole debate around this, we have been forced to call this bill, and now this bill that it's being divided into, the Mixed Ownership Model Bill. The reason why this is being called the Mixed Ownership Model Bill in this SOP, MOM, is because the acronym is MUM. That's the truth. The reason why we're being forced to call it the Mixed Ownership Model Bill is because the acronym forms the word mum. And what this government has done repeatedly through this whole debate is they've referred to mums and dads and tried to have a quaint little propaganda exercise around how they're doing this thing for mums and dads, which is why in this amendment in front of us they're calling it the Mixed Ownership Model Bill.
Point of order, the Honourable Member Louise Upston.
Thank you, Mr Chair. You have already referred to the fact that your Speaker's ruling number 125 is that it's to be a very narrow debate.
Point of order, the Honourable Member Chris Hipkins.
Somebody in the position of a whip should know that it is completely out of order to interrupt a member to question the relevance of their speech. The sole judge of relevance, and there are Speaker's rulings to this effect, the sole judge of relevance is the member and the chair.
Speaking to the point of order, the Honourable Member Louise Upston.
I wasn't questioning relevance. I was coming back to the fact that this debate is a very narrow one, specifically related to the dividing of a bill. And I referred directly to the Speaker's ruling that you mentioned before.
Can I just say that, obviously, as the chairperson, I am the sole judge, but I can rule about relevancy or whatever the case might be. And I actually had signalled Dr Norman, and he was starting to come back when the member rose to take the point of order. So I would just now refer the member to Speaker's Rulings 120/5, and I think that he was pretty much on key, so let's just make it nice and tight and narrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The point is that in this debate, we are referring to a supplementary order paper in front of the House, which is an amendment, and there is a proposal within this supplementary order paper that the second act, or the Second Amendment Act, be called the Public Finance Mixed Ownership Model Bill. I could not be speaking more closely to the issue at hand by addressing what it is that the government proposes to call the Second Amendment Act. And the reason they're calling it by this specific name, the Mixed Ownership Model, is because they want to promote a propaganda purpose. It is not related to the reality of what we're doing, which is that we're creating mixed ownership companies. The reason why it's called the Mixed Ownership Model, which goodness knows what that's meant to mean, is for propaganda purposes because the acronym is MOM. That is, it's like mums and dads. That's what they're using in this supplementary order paper right in front of us that we're addressing in this debate, whereby the supplementary order paper establishes an act called the Public Finance Mixed Ownership Model Amendment Act is that they're calling it this particular name because they want to promote a set of ideology about mums and dads New Zealanders, even though most mums and dads will never be able to afford to buy shares in this company. That's why all the way through this they have used the language that is in the title of the second act that they are creating in this supplementary order paper. Now, when you look at what they've spent on Senate Communications, which is a spin-doctoring company, a PR agency, with all the focus groups and all the propaganda that they've put forward, which will be funded by the taxpayer, $120 million on propaganda, Senate Communications, advertising and investment bankers, it's all about these words in this supplementary order paper. It's all about getting the propaganda right, regardless of the fundamental fiscal or economic arguments. What this government has consistently done, and it is demonstrated in the words they have chosen to call the Amendment Act in this supplementary order paper, consistently what they've tried to do is make a propaganda point. And my question to the Minister is, why don't you just call it the Public Finance Mixed Ownership Amendment Act, which is really what it is? Why is it that you've introduced the word model into the title of the second act? The reason, I would argue, is that you wanted the acronym to be MUM. And my apologies, Mr Chair. The reason the government wanted this second title to be Mixed Ownership Model was because they wanted to, it was part of their propaganda exercise. And it is the propaganda exercise which has characterised this debate from beginning to end. Thank you, Mr Chair. The Green Party will be opposing this amendment.
I call the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Speaker, on behalf of New Zealand First, we rise to